Right.
Cheers! Yay! Still eating this cheese. Yeah, we're like,
yo, I got crackers. Eat all the cheese. All the cheese.
Is this food and nobody fucked with the food?
I was fucking with it. It was just far away from me.
I'll put it over here.
So the exhibition is called "Without Architecture, There'd Be No Stone Wall. Without Architecture, There'd Be No Brick." And so they're like organizing all these performances.
That's hard.
Yeah,
Sitting with that.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
And so we were like, but I think like what happened in our conversation with Rad that was like so unplanned was that Gio and Rad were both talking about like their experience growing up having house parties with their family. And then even you talking about the stoop of our truck made me think about like being at my CC and people crowding around the front door, like not even going inside and just kind of like waiting for people to arrive or like going out for a cigarette or whatever. And like, is the bar club trying to mimic something more wholesome about how you congregate as a family at home?
A lot of the times we end up just hanging out, like sitting on the ledge, like the step that's right there, which is very much like thinking about like just sitting on the stoop. Like, what is it? Like, there's like the whole house to sit inside, but we sit right here. And that still happens even within this truck, which is interesting. It's like unscripted, whatever. And so it's like the doors open. I think like us having these like double like doors really helps. Like everybody wants to just be like right there, like through the window or whatever. Yeah. So I think like
feel
even
that breeze. A lot of queer family is formed in these spaces and also like shows up in these spaces. It's just because when you're at the rave, we love dancing, we love music, but sometimes you need a break. Sometimes you want conversation, and sometimes you want to be heard, and sometimes you want, you know, that dialogue and that exchange happening. And most of that happens outside or like near the entrance. Like I remember when Victor used to have 229, that warehouse. Those were some of the first queer parties that I ever went to, fully like out and like, you know, enjoying myself. It's also where we first did FemPower events. Like our launch was there, and like everyone, as much as people were inside, people were outside. Also, because it's Miami, and people love a little flick up moment, you know, they love to be photographed, like all of that. A lot of that happens outside too. You know, so you'll have like people talking and like kikiing, but then you'll also have like the photo moments.
You're like the lighting,
which
is
are also
great. It's interesting to think about architecture even in that way, right? Like I think there's something about you being like, okay, I want to break, I want to go outside, but you're not ready to like leave yet. It's a break. But how a lot of times we end up just like leaning against the wall, the exterior of the wall, so we're still touching the same space, but we're just on the opposite side, right? So it's like there's still this kind of connection that's happening between like what this actual space, the architecture space, the people, the sound, the music, whatever, in terms of proximity to each other. And it's like these are all things that we do subconsciously, but I think there is something about that we're still connected. You know what I mean? Like there's something about just purely as being right there.
Yeah. Like you don't want to let go.
No, that part.
We're so alienated in our daily lives. We're so like separated from each other, like living in this country just kind of like under these conditions just kind of like makes you feel like you're always alone and like you don't have anyone. And so I think like people go out looking for friendship, looking for connection, looking for love, looking for you know, community. And so I think like that is like kind of like a wholesome part of it. Like while like people are going for the pleasure seeking, for like a toxic spiral moment if they need to, like some kind of reprieve, some kind of escape, there's also like people are looking for like human connection. You know, people are looking for intimacy. People are looking to be loved on, you know, touch. Like
that's so real. Like how we use language to talk about pleasure can like kind of dictate whether we say that it's debauchery or joy. You can be looking for a partner and looking for intimacy, and that sounds different than being like I want to fuck tonight.
Yeah.
But that can also
It is.
that can
Sometimes it's
also-
not.
Yeah.
Facts.
But I think the thing too, like thinking about queer club specifically, is like those two things can happen simultaneously at the same time. Not through the same person, but in terms of like in the same space, right? And I think that's also the thing. Is like, okay, like wherever you're at and all these things, there's a level of like acceptance that can be there for you, and that's something that a lot of people can't have or don't have access to on the day-to-day basis, right? So it's like, I think even in that way, you're being seen.
I guess what I wanted to bring up was like, especially since you mentioned Juneteenth, now that it's summer and thinking about last summer and how chaotic that was, and like how many people like came into consciousness politically, especially as like Black people, as queer people, as oppressed people, just like realizing how the system isn't working for us, and like took the streets for it and everything. And like, I think in my mind, since I had been organizing before that, I was like, is this really happening? And then I went out during Memorial Day weekend. I told y'all, and the bartender was like this like Black gay person, and he had like mad stickers that were like protect Black trans women, Black Lives Matter, like all this stuff. And it's like, this is a shift, you know, like it's a shift. Like in Miami, where people are like, I feel like, you know, in the party world, like people are like extremely apolitical, and like there's like an overarching like anti-intellectual like kind of like energy, like I think here, like the people that choose to like say something, it really means something, you know. People like really identified lesbianism and even queerness as like, this is a political identity, like this is a political project, you know. And so like I wonder like how that shows up for you, you know, even thinking about like Stonewall, and like what you mentioned about like that was architecture and the brick was architecture, like you know, how does like queerness and lesbianism as a political marker, like how does that feel for you, or like how does that show up for you?
I mean, it's like for me, I can't separate it, you know what I mean? I just, for me, it's just, it is. And I think like, you know, we were talking about earlier, like there are these like very there is at large a sort of like mainstream like queer community that exists, right? And that's like not to say, which I think is very much tied to capitalism, but that's not to say that they're not queer. They're, you know what I mean? Like I'm not trying to like take that. It's just a different perspective in terms of how we like move through spaces, through life, how we interact with folks. Like the decisions that we make very much are very vastly different. And so there is like, we can both be queer, but on polar opposites of the spectrum in terms of how we carry ourselves. And I like, I mean, I've always felt like that it's a very political decision, you know, and I'm like, I don't understand.
It's the same question of like assimilation.
Exactly.
You know, it's like what people choose to do or like feel like they have to do to like get ahead in this country.
Yes. Like, for sure.
I don't think I have all the language for it, but I do want to kind of play devil's advocate and say that I think that they're a part of the power of queer spaces, of queer nightlife spaces, is for me the opportunity to not have a political conversation, to know that like I'm in a space where there is a certain level of similarity that doesn't require the same amount of
you don't have to explain yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. But that is also political.
That's also, exactly. And I'm not saying that like when I show up to a queer Y that I'm expecting to be like, let's talk about politics. The idea of queerness for me goes far beyond of my sexual orientation. Far, far beyond that. And I think that there's one other side of the spectrum that is like very embedded into this your sexual orientation and period. That's it. Right? Fine, you know, but it's for me, it's like more than that. It's who I am. It's my whole entire life. It's every single decision that I'm making in my life.
A refusal of a binary, a refusal to be like put in any kind of box.
Exactly.
I do agree that there's a shift that has happened. Like unequivocally, it's different out here. Like the, you know, representation only does so much, but the effort to maintain a facade of support and acknowledgement that exists in restaurants and bars and retail spaces or whatever
they're more
is
accountable to something now.
For sure.
we have to continue applying that pressure
Definitely.
to get what we deserve and to get what was stolen from us.
Yes.
Just be
This was amazing. Yeah. So good. Yay. So
I'm dead. I'm still on my first drink.
I know. It's
But that shit is strong. I'm like,
Is it? Am I gonna be drunk later? I think you have to eat that much today.
yeah.
But I
And I did the same yesterday, and then I drank some 3 really strong old fashions.
Yeah.
Like, I knew today was gonna be late.
yeah. I'm still happy for you.
Thank you. I needed to hear that without knowing it. Seriously. I'm so happy. I'm so proud of you. Everything. So good to have your support and love and be inspired by you.
Hugs on your tippy toes.
I'm like, I'm not wearing my platform.
Yeah. It's like I literally buy a platform so I can be on my friend's level. I'm like, hey guys, I'm here.
Alright.
Yeah.
It's that time.
Yeah. Yeah. Say hi to everyone for
Okay, I will, definitely. Hugs.
Yo, have fun in New York for
Oh my god.
for jelly.
You know I will. I'll be living my best ass life, Nagva.
Yeah.
Drinks on drinks from bar to bar, like y'all did.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.